listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
It is Monday.
It is Monday.
It's Monday.
It is not the Mondayest of Mondays. That was last week.
And we have a couple of things. It is Camp Week.
Yes. I
So
love
we
Camp
get to
Week.
visit Lutheran camps across the... Well, we don't really get to visit them in
It would
person.
be way better if we could visit in person.
That would have been fun.
Let's do that
Why
next year.
didn't you plan it that way?
I'm sorry. My bad. Hashtag.
Some of them are warmer than it is here.
Right? I know.
It's Camp Week, and also there should be a new issue of the Lutheran Witness hitting your mailbox today, really.
I already got
should
mine.
Be, you already got
last
yours. Well,
week.
aren't you special?
I know.
So it should be in your mailbox. If it isn't in your mailbox, then it's probably already on the coffee table or in your bag. And don't forget to pull it out and read it this week, because we have some good stuff to dig into in the Lutheran Witness with our favorite managing editor of the Lutheran Witness in studio today. Thanks to our friends at Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about them at cuw.edu. In studio today, Rachel Bomberger, managing editor of the Lutheran Witness. Thanks so much for joining us for the March issue.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, my two favorite coffee hour hosts.
Well,
As it is.
yeah. It's like you're my favorite child. Wait, you're my only child.
Hopefully. That would be a different conversation.
The Lutheran Witness March issue, Life Together, Set Apart. Tell me about this theme this month, Life Together, Set Apart. It feels like there should be a yet in there somewhere.
Yes. Well, as you remember, with the last 3 months have been all about sort of riffing on this old favorite, old at this point, but it's not that old, and yet it is old because it's throughout the whole history of the church. But the Witness, Mercy, Life Together. So we did Witness in January, we did Mercy in February, and of course we've got to round it up off with Life Together. But it's a little more complicated than that, hence Life Together, Set Apart. So in this issue, we're really doing two things that fit together really well. One is Life Together, fellowship. How do we understand and live out this incredible love that we have for one another in the church? But then tied into that is, what is our relationship to everything outside the church? So the whole in the world but not of the world question, which I think really does, in fact, tie in well with our understanding of what is our fellowship and how tightly and how exclusive is that fellowship. So there's a lot of interesting tension in this issue, but I think it really brought some important things to the forefront for me.
I had not thought about that aspect of Life Together before, that our life together also includes how we interact with people outside the church too, because part of our life together is reacting to the culture that happens around us.
Yeah. A lot of I guess the inspiration for this issue was some of the thinking that I did a couple of years ago. Again, feels strange that it's so far now, but when Rod Dreher's book, The Benedict Option, came out, and, because not everyone's read that book, there's no actual mention of it in the issue, but you can sort of see some of those themes played with and taken through and applied and tested. But in The Benedict Option, he basically argued that culture is failing. We're entering a new post-Christian era. And so how do Christians react to this hostile culture? And his answer was to follow in the example of Benedict of Nursia, take everyone, go up in a monastery in the hillsides and try to preserve what you can of Christianity. Now, of course, he has that's a very simplistic explanation of what he's doing. What he's really saying is, don't go up on the hills, but sort of make sure that your relationships in the church are the most important relationships that you have, that you're forming nurturing faith communities. And we would, I think, go along with that, that idea that the church is this refuge for those of us who are in Christ to come together, to love one another, to care for one another, and to provide an alternative to all the nastiness outside.
Yeah.
Sure, we refer to it as the Ark sometimes. When we talk about the church, we refer to it as the Ark, or as you say, the place of refuge. Sometimes a hospital as well. All images that
Right.
where we come into, we're brought into, really, I should say, we're brought into this place of refuge by God's grace, and in that we find in one another too that encouragement, that comfort, that fellowship.
Yeah. But this is a place not where we wall ourselves in, but where people are coming in, where we are going out to share love. And so that creates some tension. I think, as soon as you say in the world, but not of the world, people say, yeah, but what exactly does that mean?
What does that look like?
What does that look like?
For those of us who are visual.
Are we, and this is, again, simplistic language, but are we going to save the world? Or are we going to save ourselves from the world? Now, of course, we don't do any of the saving in this. It's all in Christ. And I think that's where the answer, can be found in it. And a couple of our authors, perhaps, two Joels, actually, the Reverend Dr. Joel Olowski and the Reverend Dr. Joel Bierman both have articles in this issue, looking at how the early church did this, how Lutheran theology did this, and I won't spoil their takeaways there, but it's really, really worth walking along with them on this journey and realizing, okay, well, it's never going to not be hard. But maybe we can catch a vision for what this looks like.
And you address, I think, probably the most difficult question of all, to include cream of mushroom soup or not with green beans.
Yes. Well,
in your article.
I vote yes. Sorry.
So, fellowship. I mean, how do we, when we're faced with a hostile world on the outside, and it is increasingly, an uncomfortable place for Christians to be in secular society, but what does life look like in this refuge? And so I pulled out a few sort of iconic things that are specific to our church family. You've got Dr. Jeffrey Blursch writing on the power of music and specifically singing together to create community. You've got Joshua Kittleman, a professor at Concordia Ann Arbor. Shout out to my alma mater. Hello, everyone. But writing on the power of serving together to bring young people into fellowship with one another and with the whole church. And then I wrote an article that I'd been looking forward to for months. That is a loving tribute to the Lutheran potluck. Because in these fellowship meals, I see a wonderful example of how this idea of Christian fellowship that is pouring itself out in love, giving, receiving, sitting together, it just all comes out. And no, you don't need tuna noodle casserole to have a good potluck.
Aww.
Well, I mean, you can if you want to.
Well, I think we joke about the Lutheran potluck and how it's, a typical thing, but it does, there is that fellowship and that is a time when we all come together to share our gifts of food making, cooking skills. I don't know, but also we share the love of Christ with each other in that setting too.
Yeah, we do, and you share yourself for real. Like Sarah, I'm sure when you bring stuff to the potluck, it's stuff that you can eat.
It is,
and then other people get to experience your
what it's like to eat like Sarah.
What it's like to eat like Sarah. And
it's really not all that bad.
I sort of joked in the article about how, I like kale a lot. And so I will often...
You admit to it.
Lately bring a kale salad. And people do sort of raise an eyebrow a little bit. But you know what? They make room for it. And then they try a little bit of it. And then not only do they know a little bit more about me and who I am, but they've shared it with me. And it's this beautiful... I don't know, symbol of fellowship that and unfortunately it's dying. I think you see fewer and fewer of these, and I really would love to revive this tradition of just putting a date on the calendar that says potluck today, and people just show up with food and then they pray and then they sit and they eat and they all clean up together and then they go home. It's so simple, but so beautiful.
And in that time, though, you learn so much about one another and learn about ways that you can demonstrate that love and mercy for one another, too, in your daily lives, just from sitting down and having a meal together. I recall, each summer, our congregation having a picnic.
Yeah.
And every summer, I think, why do we do this once a year?
Yeah.
Why don't we do this more frequently than this?
Month.
Because we enjoy the conversation so much, and it's around the food, and so we always just enjoy that time together. And there's so much that we learn about one another, and provides more opportunities to serve one another from there.
Yeah. And pro tip, if anybody is looking for a new church, if you've moved, visit them on their church picnic day.
Yes.
You will learn a lot. First of all, it's free food, which, but you'll learn so much about the congregation and how they treat each other and how they love each other by visiting a congregation when they have one of those meals.
And how they love you. Because
yes, exactly.
No one has ever, as I mentioned in the article, no one has ever turned away from a potluck. You show up and you're like, oh, I didn't know there was a potluck today. Everyone's like, come help us eat.
There's plenty of food. There are 12 varieties of Jell-O. Don't worry.
And so I just love that. And it sort of is one aspect of this life together set apart that really makes me happy.
Food has that effect on us too. Yeah. So the March issue, Life Together, Set Apart, in mailboxes now. Get it, read it. If you only have time to read one article today, what's the one to read today, and then read the rest throughout the month?
I'm gonna say Joel Olowski, Life Among the Pagans.
Okay, sit down and read that one today.
Yeah. Early Christians and how their way of living together, apart in the world, but separate from the world, really not only modeled a way of living that transcended their culture and changed the world.
There you have it.
That's a teaser. Go read it.
Where to get if you don't have Lutheran Witness in your mailbox today?
Okay, well, there are two places you can go. If you don't have a subscription to the magazine, go to cph.org/witness, like right now, and take care of that. If you want to take a look at the entire table of contents for this month, you can go to witness.lcms.org and get a few sort of teaser freebie things there to show you what it's all about.
Rachel Bomberger, she's the managing editor of the Lutheran Witness and potluck hostess extraordinaire.
Apparently.
I only wish.
Thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Thank you.
Camp Week up next here on the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.